I'm going to tell you my story. It's not a fascinating story, but I think it might add value to some of your lives. So I went from being an average or below average student at high school, failing some modules as well, to graduating with a first class honors in aeronautical engineering, and then being featured on national television as a subject matter expert. So this story is all about that shifting of mindset from being an underachieving student at school to being an overachieving student at university, and also acting as a subject matter expert in certain topics within my niche. And I am going to back it up with science-based evidence of what happens psychologically. So if you are in the same place, maybe this might be useful for you. Without further ado, let's dive into this video. So where do I start? Well, as a student, I was never that star student. Teachers did not have faith in me, and I believe for certain years even my parents thought like, he's going nowhere. But to tell you the truth, deep inside I knew I wanted to be someone bigger than myself. Now in this story, there's something I genuinely loved, and there's something I genuinely put my hard work, my free time onto, and that was aviation. I think that inspiration came from my uncle, who's a captain at a national airline now, and he had this simulator set where it's a Microsoft Flight Simulator. Few days he actually gave me to play with it as well, and I loved it. I was like, oh my god, I'm actually flying a machine, even though it's from a computer. For my little brain it was, oh, I'm doing this. I was around 6-7 years old, and I fell in love with this phenomenon called aviation, machines that fly, and also seeing the respect he earns from my family. And I always looked up to him, and in my little brain I wanted to be someone like him. I think that's where aviation came into me, and ever since day one I loved aviation. I was really bad in biology, and there was a time our biology teacher had told my mom, he's going to fail and he's going nowhere. And that broke my heart, because I'm hurting my family as well by not studying. It's not that I don't study, I do study, but no matter how much I try, I won't get marks. Now I know why. So I had this friend named Shehan, who is currently residing in Australia, and me and him, we used to love aircrafts. Okay, the amount of passion we had in aviation was, would you believe me if I tell you, as soon as I got my driver's license, we were acting as a captain and a co-pilot. So we used to like communicate with air traffic control, which is obviously an imaginary air traffic control, and then we just acted like we were in that hot seat. In the evenings, I still remember those days we had Skype. We got onto Skype, we didn't know how to share our screens. What we did was we hop onto a call, flash up Flight Radar 24, and he flashed up Flight Radar 24 on his end, and we pick an aircraft. So we pick an aircraft and we see, okay, within like 30 to 45 minutes, we know that the aircraft will land in the airport. So what we do is we start, he's going to communicate as a air traffic controller, me as the commander in charge of the aircraft. So we used to do this impersonation. That's how bad it was. And this is what I was doing like every single day. And whenever I get a ounce of freedom, what I do is I go into internet, type aircraft, how does it fly. So that was my passion. So when I go into school, it wasn't really interesting to me for everything that they teach. But I really wish we had a subject called aviation. I would have been like a star student then, but unfortunately you don't. So I go through GCSEs and my A-levels, and I pass. Okay, I pass around. So throughout my school time, my average was around 40 to 60. It was going up and down. but never the 70s or 80. I remember my O-levels were like the highest I got, which was 70% average, and then A-levels it was around 55 to 60% average if you count all three subjects. I completed my GCSEs, I completed my A-levels. Now it was time for me to do something with my life, and that's when I wanted to become an aircraft engineer. The reason I did not pursue my dream of becoming a pilot, I think it was due to financing. However, I did not know anything about how to become an aircraft maintenance engineer, and I thought going to an educational consultancy would be the best choice because they are there to guide the students. So I went to one of the best in the country. I'm from Sri Lanka, so I went to one of these biggest education consultancies, and then they said, okay, there's this university in Malaysia, one of the best for aircraft maintenance engineering, and then off you go. And after I go to the university, I don't want to name the university, after I go into the university, that's when I knew that it wasn't approved by any of the civil aviation authority. Unlike other programs, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, electronic engineering, aerospace engineering, aircraft engineering is different because it's highly regulated. Not only aircraft engineering, aircraft maintenance engineering, and then we have air traffic controllers, then we have cabin crew members, airline pilots. All of these four, these are the main four that is heavily regulated by the civil aviation of your country. So they did not have any of that authority. So instead of 2 to 3 years, which is the approved route, I had to go the longer route, which is I needed 5 years to become an aircraft engineer, which I think affected me, because if they would have done their research, they would have told me, look mate, don't go there, or look mate, if you're going there, it's under your own risk, it's not regulated. And that's one of the main reasons I started my company, Aerolaunch, to help students to find regulated programs, and we help aircraft engineers, pilots, air traffic controlling students, and cabin crew students to correctly understand the pathway. And that's why we are niche down. We are not here to help students to become medical doctors. We are not here to help students to be chemical engineers. We are not here to help students to be lawyers. The only thing I know is aviation, so I help students to become aviation, and I also help professionals to get jobs abroad. So enough about my company, back to where we were. So I went into this school. Even though the school wasn't approved by any of the civil aviation authorities, this school had something very special. It is still closer to my heart. This is one of those classic examples. It doesn't matter you have the best team in the world, but if you're not regulated. But the team there is absolutely amazing, 100%. I would really recommend that panel of lecturers to another student. But because the university or the school is not approved, I'm not really pushing them, and we have an agreement with them as well. So I went into the school. I was the happiest man alive, because now I'm studying next to an aircraft. We had a hangar, and in that hangar we had 2 aircrafts, and I'm like, I want to go to the cockpit, I want to take a selfie, and I was so happy that I'm in this place. But I knew I'm not a star student. I'm going to do my level best to be good at this and make my parents proud. Because ever since in school, like I wasn't that, I don't think I made them proud, but this was my time to make them proud. But I also knew there were some students with scholarship coming into this program, and they were even in the magazine. And first semester's done, I come up as the top of the batch. Second semester come, again me, top of the batch. So, and I won 3 Dean's List Award certificates. Now, Dean's List means you are the highest performing student in your batch. And for 3 consecutive semesters, I had 4.0 GPA. That's the maximum. And I graduate with 3.92 out of 4 GPA as top of the batch. Now, after this program, there is this internship, and they will assign the students for the interviews as per their academic records. Now, the airline that everybody wants to go and work for is AirAsia. So they had this interview coming up. And I still remember to this date, Head of Engineering, Mr. Virendra Singh Dahiya, and if you're watching this, my utmost respect for you. He said, Dinawan, you go first to the interview, we need a role model. And that was one of these times I'll never forget. I felt important. Okay, I never had that feeling when I was in school. And now in the university, I get that feeling. So I'm like, oh, I don't think I was stupid back then. So I go into the interview, I gave my level best to the interview. And I knew when I was walking out of that door after the interview, I knew I was going to get the job because they were well impressed. And yeah, 1 month after, I get the internship. So even during internship, I knew my school wasn't heavily regulated, but I knew if you are flying to Europe, because I'm an Italian citizen, so it's easy for me to get a job in Europe. But I knew my school wasn't regulated, so I wanted to do extra amount of work if I want to get a job. So what I did was, usually interns are assigned one job per day. So we complete that job, we go into the station, and then we just relax or do some paperwork. What I did was, I complete that task, I go into the head of engineering. Back then he was the duty engineer, Mr. Justin. I asked him, like, can I have another job? And he saw this in me, and he always like gives me jobs. And even though he doesn't have a job, he always asks me to just walk around. If you see someone working, go and ask them. By doing this, normal students were filling in logbook for 6 months. I filled in logbook with experience worth of 1 year. That's how I did my math, because I did 2 tasks. Sometimes I did 3 tasks. And I knew, I was like, okay, I'm destined to do something big in aviation. I want to be an engineer. I want to do, learn everything. So completed, and then I got my first job in Medavia in Malta. And that's where I meet the person who changed my life. That's another video. Basically, he's my mentor. And up to this date, 70% to 80% of my success is because of that person. And I will bring a separate video on finding that one person that will take you to the top 1%. Okay, so I was so happy. I was working with aircraft, and then I was really good at it. I was really enjoying myself working on the shop floor, removing wheels, removing engines, overhead bin removal, cabin work, flight controls work. I was all over the aircraft. I was really happy. But there was this void in me. That void was, I don't have a degree. I wanted to be a degree holder. Now, the reason being, I come from Sri Lanka. My parents are from Sri Lanka. I was just born in Italy. So in Sri Lanka, there's this thing, if you don't have a degree, you're not successful. I know it's dumb, but I think that's the culture I was brought up in. So it was in back of my head, you need a degree. But I was scared at one point, and I even doubted myself for a point, because I knew, oh, my diploma was easy, because maybe they made it so dumb proof that I wouldn't fail. That's why I became the top of the batch. And it might not be the same thing, because now I'm going to UK in order to do a degree. And I applied for a few degree programs, got selected for the BSc Honours in Aeronautical Engineering, and graduated with a first class honours. And I knew for a fact, okay, this is my niche, this is what I love. Okay, I'm not gonna say it was easy, and that 1 year had a lot of new things to be learned, because I was an aircraft maintenance technician, and aeronautical goes a bit deep into mathematics and the design of the aircraft. But ended up with a first class honours, and it sealed my confidence, saying, here you go win the world. And I knew one thing, there's nothing that I can't do in my life, because I was 19 when I left my parents. went to Malaysia to live alone. It was very hard, and sometimes when I sleep, I even hear my mom, shouting at me. It was very, very hard. And then I moved to Malta, built up my life there, met this mentor, and like he just changed my life. And then now came into UK, built my life, got married, settled down here, and now I have a company and I'm still working aeronautical engineer. So there was this one time that I was featured on national television. I'll tell you that story as well. So, and there was this one night where I felt so sad because what the educational consultancy did to me, and like it's my fault as well, partly because I did not do much research and I did not know what to research on before becoming an aircraft engineer. So what I wanted to help students in Sri Lanka not to go through the route that I went through, and I wanted to focus on, okay, there's something called a Part 147, that is a Civil Aviation Approved Program or a National Aviation Approved Program. At 11 o'clock, I got my mobile phone and pressed record and was talking about aircraft engineering. So, and that channel was the Aero Technician channel, which is for Sri Lankan students. And 5 years after, I have around 79,000 subscribers there. At first, I was doing both English and Sinhala videos. Sinhala is the language of Sri Lanka. So I did this one video about Dutch roll. Just a normal video, had around 54 views. And then I think after a year or so, one night I hear this bling sound from my YouTube studio, and I was checking. Oh my God, the Dutch roll short has 1,000 views, and there's a lot of people commenting on it, and I felt like, okay, this video have big traction somewhere. And then the next evening, my video was still getting traction, and I get a email saying, "Hi, I'm from Arizona Central, I'm an editor. I saw your video, would you like to write an article for Arizona Central?" I thought it was a scam, and in my head I was thinking, well, a scammer won't ask for an article. What does he got to do with the aircraft phenomena? So what do I have to lose? Wrote an article, sent it to him. The morning I just went to Arizona Central website and checked. Oh my God, my article is there, my name is there. And few hours after, New York Post contacted me. They were like, "We want your video. Will you be okay?" And I was like, "I would be okay, but please give me due credits." And they were like, "Not a problem." Few hours after, I am on New York Post. And that evening, I was at St. David's, which is a shopping complex. I get a call, and I answered the call, and it was like, "Hi Dinuwan, we saw your video at New York Post. Greta wants you in her show. We are from Newsmax. Would you like to, join Greta Van Sustren's show and discuss about Dutch roll?" I don't know what happened. I said yes. They said, "Okay, the show is at 6:30. One of our crew will talk to you before that. Please be ready." And after a while, they call me, and then I think they did a background check. Who am I? What credibility do I have? I was talking about my degree, and I was talking about why I do this video, and they were happy with it. And 6:30 UK time, I was in Greta Van Sustren's show, which is telecasted in United States. And my whole world changed, because now I'm an SME in aeronautical engineering. This is what I love. I want to help people understand what aviation is, and now I'm doing in a national platform.
Aeronautic engineer Dino Galwada joins me. Good evening, sir. Is the Dutch roll, is that dangerous?
Well, it depends, because modern aircrafts are equipped with... Which was the happiest moment of my life. If you watch that video, I am the most nervous person. Looking back, I feel like I could have provided more value than that, but that was my first gig, and I had no idea what I'm expecting. And then there was this YouTube channel in Sri Lanka called Aviation Voice. They invited me, and I started getting traction from Sri Lanka as well. Got invited to a daily show, which is of one of the famous presenters in Sri Lanka. Went there, and my whole world changed. And that's when I was able to take my platform to a consultancy level to help people, because now people know me and I wanted to help them in a way. Sorry about the change of scenery, because one of my RGB lights went off, so I had to position myself in a place that you can see me well. So when I started this video, I told you I am going to explain the shifting of the mindset. So right after my bachelor's degree, I started doing a personal research on how come a student who was below average in high school just become a star student when it comes to university, because it should be the other way around, because some people who do really well in schools, they might not do in university, because universities tend to be harder than high school. But for me, it happened the other way around. So I'm going to share it with you one by one, and let's see how we can apply it to your life. Okay, so number one is self-deterministic theory. It was researched by Edward Deci and Richard Ryan. According to them, in order to genuine motivation to develop, they need three things. First one is autonomy. That means they need to have some sort of a ownership and choice over what you are doing. And the second one is competence, meaning you feel like you are actually getting better at it. Third one is relatedness, which means you need a group of people to make you feel good about yourself and make you feel that you are, they care about your progression. For example, I had all these three things when I started. I had ownership of the program that I wanted to do. I wanted to go aircraft engineering. I did it. And then secondly, I had the competence. I felt like I am getting better at it. My first semester results and my second semester results, and I was coming as the top of the batch. And the relatedness. I had a group of lecturers who make me feel like they really care about my progress, my growth. So I had all three things. That's why when in school, I did not had a ownership of my program that I was doing. Secondly, I did not had a proper growth plan to see, okay, I'm really getting better at this. And the third one is relatedness. I never felt belonging, because different students have different ambitions, different teachers have different backgrounds. So I could not find where I felt like people do really care about my growth. And the second theory is expectancy value theory by Jacqueline Nichols. She said our brain asks two things before we commit to something. Can I do this? Does it even matters to me? And if the answers to both of those questions are yes, then you would do it even though it is hard. And if the answer to either of those questions is no, you will disengage faster. For me, aviation was something I wanted to do and it really mattered to me. So it was two yeses for me. And if you change that question to my GCSE exams, can I do it? I wasn't sure. And does it matter to me? I don't think the answer is a full yes. So I got disengaged from my academic side when I was studying for my GCSEs and A-levels. And number three is four-phase model of interest development. This was researched by Susan Healy and Anne Renninger. Interest doesn't appear out of nowhere. It grows in stages. Something briefly catches your attention, then it holds your attention, then you start seeking it out yourself, and finally it becomes a deep personal passion. Each stage builds on the last. So nobody is born obsessed with aviation. You just find that spark, and that spark just grow into a big fire. Okay, that's the four-phase model of interest development pattern. And the next one is situation cognition or situated learning. And that is, if you study simple facts to pass an exam, for example, Newton's first law of motion, Newton's second law of motion, Newton's third law of motion, you may be memorizing them, and they wouldn't stick in your memory as a learning material. What sticks in the memory is practical element, when you use tools to actually do it, and it gives your brain more knowledge. Okay, this is how it actually works. And in a silly way, what we were doing is we were acting as pilots, we were doing flight radar, we were researching about the aircraft. So it always uses some real world tools to match up what I had learned. So, and also flight simulator, I was doing my flight simulation, so I knew what are flight controls, how does the aircraft turn, and engine powers and stuff. So I was using this situation cognition to add value into my passion. So that's why aviation came easy for me, because I've already done the hard work, whereas a physics exam did not really make sense to me when I was in school. And fifth one is my favorite one, cognitive load theory by John Sweller. He mentioned your working memory, that is your mental space to process new information, is limited. For example, if you know a lot about the subject that you're passionate about, new information take up less space. So it's easier to take in new information, but if you're trying to learn a new subject, it will overwhelm you easily. So that is a classic example. I had a lot of knowledge about aircraft before I go into the university, and it really took up less working memory to add new information. So I absorb them faster. Learning something you already know about is much more easier than learning something new. And the sixth one is self-efficacy theory of Albert Bandura. So self-efficacy means the belief in your ability to succeed in something. So Albert found that single best way to build this belief is through actual success experiences. That means once you succeed, it tells your brain you can succeed again, which makes you try harder and which will give you more successes. And number 8 is growth mindset versus gap mindset. This I learned from 10x is easier than 2x from Dan Sullivan. And he said a gap mindset is when you compare yourself to a future self that you want to be. You will fail, you will not have motivation. A gain mindset is when you compare yourself to your yesterday self. And that way you can compare yourself and you can see where you are now and build that confidence. Remember self-efficacy theory? You have succeeded in doing something, so it will keep you going harder. So always have a gain mindset, that is compare yourself to your past self, not your future self. A good example is you go to a gym and you see someone with six-pack, that's your dream body. Work out day 1, you work out day 2, and you're still nowhere closer. And the motivation depletes. But if you compare yourself to your past week self, if you measure your weight and next week you measure your weight, you see you have reduced few grams. So now you have a win. So now you want to work harder and to reduce the body weight. Now you're chasing it. So that's a gain mindset. And the last one is identity-based motivation. People tend to succeed when they belong to something. I always said I want to be in aviation. I knew I wanted to be in aviation. So betraying that group, imaginary group, is something that we humans don't want to do. So have an identity. Call yourself someone even before you be that person. For example, I started my own company. I want to be an entrepreneur. And if I didn't tell you that I want to be an entrepreneur or I am an entrepreneur, I'll never build up that identity-based motivation in me to move forward. So this is what I wanted to share with you today. I know it's a long video, but from today we are going to start a series of videos how to be a better engineer, how to be an entrepreneur, or how to grow, because I am not a $1 million entrepreneur. I'm just starting out. So I'll share my experience. If there's anything you can learn from that, that is my only hope. And also we are doing this awareness or motivation based education, which is what happened to me. Within my school I had no support. Even a teacher wouldn't say, look, this might be important to become an aircraft engineer, and I would have paid much more attention. So we are helping students to have an identity based model and help them match the curriculum to what they want to be. And if you are a school who wants me, someone who learned from experience, to come and talk to them, I'm more than happy to do so. Please contact me on hello@aerolaunch.net.